Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our service. I'm Thina Berry, and I am your service coordinator today on this absolutely gorgeous March morning. I want to wish everybody who observes it a happy Palm Sunday as well. I don't know if you saw me gently panicking over here as we were listening to the pre-service music, and we saw that cello on the beach with the water just lapping up there. Oh my goodness, I could never take my instrument out there, even if it is a green screen. Today, we are blessed to have Dr. Kalei Mugellon share his message about forgiveness, gratitude, and hope with us. He will discuss how forgiveness is weird and strange, but must happen anyways, and especially to the aggrieved, which often is followed by gratitude and hope. Jesse is our Zoom host, with Karen co hosting. Sandy is at GNUC to light our chalice around the beautiful display she creates every week, and today in our garden. Sandy, thank you for lighting our chalice while we share these opening words. Day breaks on our gratitude for family and friends, for the freedom to find our own truth, for the company of those who gather here, and the promises we offer one another. Let the light of day bring the grace of faith into our lives. There are any number of reasons to reach out to Reverend Cynthia. We're very interested in having a check-in after last night's storms. Please reach out and let us know if you were affected or if you need help. And there are any number of ways to reach her. The easiest way is via her cell phone at 859 221 3034. For general information, you also have the option of contacting our admin, Chris, at gnuc@gnuc.org. She helps keeps us all connected as well. In our church, we are bound together not by creed, but by a covenant between all of us. Please join me, if you are so moved, in reading our covenant. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. For our first hymn this morning, one of my favorites, please sing along to Bright Morning Stars.
Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. Day Day is a breaking in my soul. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. Day is a breaking in my soul.
Our Share the Plate partner for March is the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. Second Harvest's 2020 numbers are there on your screen. 36.5 million meals, 10.8 million pounds of fresh produce, and 96 cents of every dollar is used to get food into bellies. They're doing valuable work, necessary work, and we're supporting them in doing it. Please donate generously to Second Harvest as our Share the Plate partner for March, and any of the ways shown on your screen. To give you time to choose your path for donation, is a short video showing various food outreach opportunities in 46 counties Second Harvest serves around us. Thanks for doing what you can. Our Time for All Sages today is a book written by one of my favorite Supreme Court justices, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and it's entitled Just Ask.
Just Ask. Be Different, Be Brave, Be You by Sonia Sotomayor and illustrated by Rafael Lopez. Hi, I'm Sonia. My friends and I are planting a garden. Gardens are magical places. Thousands of plants bloom together, but every flower, every berry, and every leaf is different. Each has a different smell, different color, different shape, and different purpose. Some flowers need lots of sunlight. Others thrive in the shade. Some have to be trimmed regularly, while others are better off left alone. Some trees and flowers are more fragile, and others are more hardy. Kids are all different too. Some of us are in a hurry, and others take more time. Some of us seem shy and quiet, while others are chatty and loud. Some of our differences are easy to spot. Others take longer to notice. Each of us grows in our own way, so if you're curious about other kids, just ask. Not everyone is comfortable answering questions about themselves, but I don't mind. What am I doing? Several times a day, I prick my finger to measure the sugar in my blood, and I give myself shots of medicine called insulin. I do this because I have diabetes and my body doesn't make insulin naturally like other people's. Even though this can sometimes hurt, I gather all of my courage to do it to be healthy. Do you ever need to take medicine to be healthy? I do. My name is Raphael and I have asthma, which means I sometimes have trouble breathing. When that happens, I take a break and use an inhaler with medicine to make breathing easier. Quiet time helps me slow down and catch my breath. My inhaler is like a tool to help my body. Do you use a tool to help your body? I'm Anthony, and I use a wheelchair to get around. Even though I can't run with my legs, I can go super fast. How do you get from place to place? My name is Madison, and my guide dog Lucky helps me get places safely because I'm blind. My friend Arturo is blind too. He uses a cane to get around. Even though we can't see, we strengthen our other senses and notice lots of details others may miss. We can hear with our ears, smell with our noses, and feel with our hands. How do you use your senses? I'm VJ. I learn about the world differently because I can see, but I can't hear. I'm deaf. Most of the time, I communicate with people using my face and hands through sign language. It's cool to know another language. I also love reading and writing. What about you? I'm Bianca, and I have dyslexia, so I have to work really hard and take my time when I'm reading and writing words. Sometimes I use computer programs to help me. I love learning by doing things. My imagination is full of ideas, and I'm very good at making art from the pictures I see in my mind. Are you really good at something? I'm great at dinosaurs. I know all about them. I'm Jordan, and I have autism. Organizing and counting all my toy dinosaurs again and again makes me feel calm. My classmate Tiana also has autism, but it's different for her. She doesn't talk, but I like to talk. I especially like to talk about dinosaurs. What do you like to talk about? For me, listening comes more easily than talking, and I'm a really good listener. My name is An, and I speak with a stutter, so I sometimes repeat a word or get stuck when I try to say it. It may take me a little longer to express myself, and sometimes I'm too shy to talk, but I understand everything that's going on. Do you ever wonder if people understand you? I do. My name is Julia. Sometimes I wiggle or make sounds that I can't control because I have Tourette's syndrome. People may look at me funny because they think I'm not paying attention or just acting out, but it's not true. I am listening. I don't always like having to explain. It frustrates me, but it helps when I tell people that it's just what my body does. Do you ever feel frustrated? My name is Manuel, and I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is also called ADHD. I can get frustrated when I really feel the need to move around, even though I'm supposed to sit still. When my teachers and friends are patient with me, if I forget something or get distracted, I can get myself back on track. What's helpful to you? I'm Nolan. It's helpful to me when the food I eat has a clear label that says it is nut-free because I am allergic to nuts. They can make me so sick that I would have to go to the hospital if I ate any, even by accident. So I always tell people about my allergy and ask if any food has nut ingredients. Speaking up keeps me healthy. How do you use your voice? I love to sing and I love to talk. I love to make new friends and be included. I am Grace. I was born with Down syndrome. Kids like me with Down syndrome have an extra building block called a chromosome in our bodies. But we are all different from each other too. I can do almost anything any other kid can do, though learning new things can take some time. One way I learn is to ask questions. What helps you learn? It's me, Sonia, again. I ask questions too. When something seems different or new, I just ask my parents or my teachers, and they help me to understand, especially if my friends don't feel ready to explain. This is what I've learned. Imagine if all of the plants in this garden were exactly the same. Like, what if we could only grow peas? That would mean no strawberries or cucumbers or carrots. It might also mean no trees or roses or sunflowers. Just like in our garden, all the ways we are different make our neighborhood and our whole world really more interesting and fun. And just like all of these plants, each of us has unique powers to share with the world and make it more interesting and richer. What will you do with your powers?
Well, with my powers, I'm going to invite us to enjoy another song. To celebrate this first Sunday of spring, our next song is Springtime Will Come.
This old world may be sleeping, but we have been dreaming of a brighter day. Some of us keeping our minds on the reason. Beautiful season is coming our way. Today could be the day. Hey, little flower, you got the power to push through green blankets. You're ready to grow. Hey there, sweet bluebird, tell me what you heard. I want to sing that great song that you know. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day is coming, yes, there will be sunshine. Wipe away teardrops, springtime will come. It's been so lonely, but that was only our chance to realize the love that we need. Come, take my hand now, let's make a plan how to stay wide awake. Let's fly you and me away. Wake from your slumber and try to remember a time when we all were together as one. A new day has come, tell me you feel the sun. Wipe away teardrops, springtime has come. I'm wide awake now.
Such a beautiful song. Dr. Kalei Mugellon is an emotional intelligence trainer, author, humanist, poet, professor, and so much more. Please join me in welcoming our guest speaker today, Dr. Mugellon.
Hello, greetings. I'm the emotional part of me says my heart's pounding. If you can hear me, thank you very much. It's weird to not have anybody here visibly. I should have brought a bobblehead. But thank you, Church. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Nina, to give me this little. My biggest challenge for doing this was I bring it into 20, 15 minutes to let you think about a thought with me. It's just a thought. It's not a sermon. It's not a homily. See me as perhaps an attorney and you're the jury. So for me, forgiveness, I come from the Malay culture where you greet by saying, forgive me, my body and soul. That's how you greet, like namaste, but you greet with forgiveness. So I think about forgiveness a lot. Star Wars for me was about forgiveness. So I've thought about forgiveness plenty. Forgiveness is weird, is because this is why I think it's weird. If I do you wrong, I'm the bad guy. You have a burden. And the burden is you have to forgive me. Whether I intend to do you wrong, regardless of my intention. If I've done you wrong, you have a burden to forgive me. If you don't forgive me, guess who's in bondage? Not me. It's you. The victim here in this place, the one that was perpetrated to, has the burden to forgive. How fair is that? I tell my students, fair comes to town twice a year, maybe in the fall. Fairness is something we wrestle with. It's like Cable and Cain. Abel, I'm messing up. But you know where I'm going with this. It's something we wrestle with. That's fairness. What's forgiveness? Now, say I've done you wrong and you have the burden to forgive me. If you don't forgive me, you are in bondage. Bondage of the event, bondage of the interpretation of the event, and you have to process. I'm the guy and I'm gone. And say someday I realize, like, oh, that was so wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And for that reason, I come to you and I apologize. And I say, hey, yo, I messed up. But you are in a place of anger. You're not ready to forgive. Because I said, I'm sorry, I am set free. And you're still in bondage. Am I right? If you think about it, I think that's a pretty cogent argument. That forgiveness is weird. The person who's been hurt has to do the forgiveness. Now, religion offers a couple of solutions. Come to me, I'll forgive. But there are about 500 types of counseling. The counseling world is incredibly successful because forgiveness doesn't work. We walk around with regret, confusion, shame, just all sorts of things. And we bury it, try to keep it cool because we haven't done forgiveness. Complicated. So I propose, it's very old, nothing I say is new. Nothing I say is new. So I propose, if you can hold this thought, okay, think with me, just hold this thought in your head pretty well, it can work. That all of us, every one of us, including the people you don't like, just treat it as a thought, not as a truth, not as the axiom. Here it is, that all of us are doing the best we know how at all times, given the resources available to us at that time. I'll say it again. All of us are doing the best we know how, given the resources available to us at that time. The moment when we punch someone or said the most hurtful words, at that moment, or did something that was so hurtful to somebody else, at that moment, it felt like it was the best thing to do. And we end up doing it because that moment feels so right to do it. We do it, and then boom, our life changes, everything changes. We're kind of in a bad place. We don't even know how to deal with it. But if we can hold that space that all of us are doing the best we know how at all times, given the resources available to us at that time, if you think about it, you can come to peace with it, because in all the things I have done that I absolutely regret, at that moment, it felt so good, so right to do it. And I regret doing it. All right. That's very fancy way of saying it. The little cool way of saying it is, Jesus said it too. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. I just fancified it. And in the South, you might have heard this being said. They don't know no better. Let them go. I hear that a lot in Alabama, right? They don't know no better. It's a very clever way of thinking about this little incident. So things that has happened to us, or things we think we have done to somebody. At that moment, if you can hold that space, that all of us are doing the best we know how, given the resources available to us at that time, it's a little bit easier to forgive. Now, how do you forgive? It's again that's one paradigm to forgiveness. The forgiveness itself is kind of weird because how do you forgive things that your father did, your ancestors did? How? We feel bad about it. We feel guilty about it. You know, it's funny. I grew up in Malaysia, spent a lot of time in Alabama. When I became an American citizen, I felt my hand bloody for the things we have done to Native Americans, our history, sin of slavery, all of that. I'm like, I am guilty too. I still feel it. It's like, wow, I didn't even grow up here. I have taken it on as being an American. How do you do forgiveness? That's one paradigm. Think about that, process that. If that is the case, then the next step is to think about, you have to, first of all, you have to forgive yourself. Now, we all know what Stockholm Syndrome is. Stockholm Syndrome is you take it on yourself. Like, although somebody have done you bad, you think you're the one who caused it. Sometimes people will tell you, yeah, just because of you, I did what you did. Like in Atlanta, it happened, right? It's because of them, I did what I did. Oh, confusing, very confusing. But if you begin forgiving, well, even if it is true or not is irrelevant. If you treat it, a threat is usually worse than actual event. So for those reasons, if you feel it, regardless of why we feel it, own it and forgive yourself. Start with self-forgiveness. Like whatever that is, you too were doing the best you knew how at that moment, given the resources available to you at that time. At that moment, that's what you did. Begin forgiving self. First step. You have to do it. And the way to do it, we're like, well, where do I start? Get a paper and a pen and you start writing it down. I need to forgive me for A, B, C, D. Usually it comes around 3 areas. Forgive yourself around relationships, forgive you around experiences, and sometimes about demographics. I'm also a sociologist, so there's a piece on demographics. If I get invited back, I can talk about. Forgive yourself in the sense, write it down. Something about writing it down, our brain does some work. I think it's Malachi somewhere, it says you have to write it down if you follow the Bible. Write it down and start pondering it. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Often it doesn't even help to go and ask for apology. Most of the time people have done whatever we think they've done to us. They're not even conscious of it. Don't even worry about it, but write it down anyways. You forgive, you begin forgiving yourself. And in the process, you let whatever comes up for you. And I'll talk about gratitude and hope after that. But start the process of forgiving. And to every single time, think about that paradigm. All of us are doing the best we know how at all times, given the resources available to us at that time. Now, if you start working on this, I have done it, strange things happen. One of the things that will happen, and you'll hear it in people's stories, gratitude comes up. It comes up when we begin forgiving. Like we sometimes, like it's so convoluted to the point we will look back and say, hey, I'm glad that happened to me. Now, 5 years ago, you would have hated that, but now you look back and you say, I'm glad that happened. Something about what I have today, I'm so thankful. It's also partly, everything turns around, the story changes in our past. So something about writing your story down and what that is, who you need to forgive, why you need to forgive, and how you need to forgive, and you want to forgive. Just that will begin the process. And we all do. And our past starts changing, that our past events will start changing. And we start being thankful. I've heard people, that some of the stories that has affected me, a couple standing there and her boyfriend had poured acid on his face. And, the reporter is asking like, well, are you mad at the person who did it? How can I? I forgave him so long ago. Look what I have. I have this newfound boyfriend. I have a new life. I have a new expression to being. He's got nothing to do with it. I am a new me. I'm so glad all of that happened. It's weird. It sets the person free, nevertheless. That's the gratitude comes. Now, when you think of opposite of gratitude, you take a moment and think about what is opposite of gratitude. I think it's to complain and to whine. Gratitude, it's a little peculiar thing about gratitude is if you want to complain, there's no limit. You can complain about everything in the world. But if you reverse it, if you want to be thankful, you have gratitude. It also has, you can be thankful for everything in the world. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool to be able to switch it and then to stay in gratitude. You know, like your left arm is cut off, left leg is cut off, left arm is cut off. You're glad you still have your right arm and your left leg. I'm pointing at the wrong point. Switch. Never mind. So, you know, like glass is half empty, half full. I even say I'm glad I have a glass. I've taken it to another extreme of being in gratitude and being thankful. Now, when you stay in gratitude, somewhere along the way, hope comes along. Spring, time of hope. Hope is action. When we become hopeful, almost always we step into action. We want to do something. We do not sit still anymore. And then the opposite, you know, we often say hopeless, right? Opposite to hope, hopeless. If you give up hope, I think death happens. Something about us dies. So to be in a place of hope, we have to go back to forgiveness and then look for, when you begin the process of forgiving, gratitude appears and you push it further, hope comes and we come into action. That's the crux of what I want to say. I want to share one little example of the president of Arthritis Association of America. So the interviewer will ask, you know, are you hopeful about the future? And she says, there's no other way. You have to be. There is no other way. It may not happen in my lifetime that we will find a cure for arthritis and the pain, but there is no other way. You have to live presuming there is hope. Every movie we see is about hope. Every story we like to write and read is about hope. And if you think about it, the theme in it is hope. And hope, if you go back to the beginning of to what I started off with, forgiveness is the beginning of it, right? I teach yoga as well. One of the few things I tell people, if you can feel forgiveness, tangible, make it, I forgive and I let go. If you can feel gratitude, you can like literally feel it, like, oh, I'm thankful. Like, I'm really thankful I got this opportunity. You can feel it in me. It'll come out in some kind of way. You can feel it. And then you can feel hope in you, like, a birth, a story, or something happens to you, got a new job, whatever not. You at the moment you felt hopeful. Bring that feeling back into you. You can make it tangible and then you can send it out. So I send out forgiveness, gratitude, hope, and before I go back into the question piece, I want to remind everybody, it is so complicated. How do we work on forgiveness? Racism, slavery, we still have it. We still struggle with it. How does a woman who's been raped by the priest? Incredibly complex. It's not so easy in any level, but the beginning of it is to actually simply acknowledge that you want freedom, we want gratitude and hope eventually, but to own that place. This being March, this is one of the things I do when I present presentations, even around Me Too, and I do this to women, right? As a man in power, usually very tired work, right? I tell people, I tell the women, for all the things we have done as a man, and all the things we are doing now, and all the things we'll continue to do, it is bad. So many things we have done that is bad. I am sorry. I have given you the apology. I hope you work with it. And if you cannot find space to forgive me, I get it. But I hope you begin writing your story down. So you become the narrator of your story as opposed to the story running in your head. What do we call this, people, right? So when this story is put on a piece of paper, you write it down, you become the narrator of the story, you become the teller of the story, you get to also manipulate the story along the way. That's the crux of what I wanted to share. I think I might have summarized it. I would like some feedback, questions, thoughts that I like to expound on. I got a bunch, like I said, I used like 40 minutes to talk about this. So I'll wrap up here on that and wish you So when we light up our candle, I think joy and concern, yes, to also add forgiveness in it, whatever that means, a feeling of forgiveness. I am sorry. To even receive somebody's apology and also to give somebody apology, and then to own our own apology. There are places that the Stockholm syndrome is the piece where you have to think about forgiving yourself, whether it is true or not. Some have found that happy people are grateful. Ah, it went away. Yes, happiness is not the goal. I often say, don't peg happiness as the goal. Or is to be present today and now, and to be mindful of what's around is, for me, is my goal. My happiness and bliss is not my goal. Then sadness has a place. When somebody dies or something dies, we need sadness. So happiness is not my goal. My goal has always been, the mindfulness to be present with whatever that is there at that moment. So where am I on time? I read that somebody said something, but it went away. I think Jess is out there and Tina is out there helping me out. I can keep
Absolutely.
talking.
So if anybody has any questions, you can either take yourself off mute and ask directly, or put your question in chat and I'll be happy to read it for you. I actually have a question. You mentioned something about taking an action of working towards forgiveness on societal level, specifically racism and the evils of slavery. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that and how one would go about doing that.
I'll tell you what I have done. So for me, humanity has, like, it's angel-like. We've done angel-like things. We also have done tremendous things, right? Gone to the moon. We've also done some amazingly crazy things that you're like, oh my God, even animals don't engage in such. That's humanity. So I have, as a human, like, called my own being, my history. I know the history. I know how to mine the history, but it is not one person pitted against another. My humanity has let me down. The humanity I live in has let me down. And that's where I have begun. When I'm around homeless men, I say that, I'm sorry, humanity let you down. In fact, you can replace the word with society. I have done this to soldiers who have seen, like, they see really, really, really bad things, like a head blown off. The rattle that happens to them is it's humanity based. So when we think about all those things, is to own it, like, yes, humanity has that capacity to do really, 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 really bad things. To own it, as opposed to pit against one group or another, its economics or not, the color. And if you go back in history, humanity has done some strange things. The recent atrocity we can think about, there are very recent ones. The big one that the United States struggled with is slavery, is to, like, it happened. And I'm not going to be bound by it. My humanity had let me down. It's my brothers. Genetically speaking, right? We are 99% the same. Out of about 25,000 genes, there are about 4 genes that determine texture of my hair, like skin color, my nose structure and all that. So with that, that's it. There is no race. So when I'm able to own that more and more, it's not easy to do it, because when I go to the airport, you can imagine, right? I need to be very careful of how I'm being seen or perceived, so my journey goes well. So to own that, so my humanity is capable of doing really, really, really bad things. That could be me, and I need to be mindful. And that's been what I have done. In fact, I still tell people I can be put in a place where I could do some really, really bad things. I wish I don't. I talk about Gandhi. One of the reasons he's an attorney, right? He could put on tie and looked good and did what he did. He kept his spot at weaving and kept his environment such that he doesn't fall into that trap of forgetting what got him there, and not forgetting humanity, the people whom he works with. So I think so the process with processing slavery is one big piece. It's like to say my humanity, my people did this to me, right? And the complications with the story. I think when the king of Ashanti in Ghana, when he finally apologized that yes, he gathered the people and helped slavery happen, that brought me peace. So my roots go back to when the British took the workers, indentured servants to Malaysia. That's where my roots go back to. So I carry some of it, and I do on a regular basis process that. Okay, I hope I've said plenty on that. Other
I
questions?
have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
The thing that's coming up for me is that
Mhm.
when processing those things at the human level, what my humanity can do is recognizing that humanity is capable of atrocities, and
Yes,
then B, taking the action of promising not to contribute. Do you agree with that?
yes, yes, absolutely. To own that I'm capable, I am not that person or this person. I am capable of this. I too am guilty of this. Helps me see people in a totally different way. If we stepped back into the forgiveness piece that all of us are doing the best we know at all times, given the resources available to us at that time. One of the other framework within it is all of us, maybe 98% of us. Okay, so I'm going to say all of us. There are 2%, statistically don't come out. They come out a little different, but let not the 2% dictate the 98% of my experience. All of us mean well. All of us love well, but we mess up. We mess up. I mess up. I too am guilty of it. But I mean well. I want to love. I want to be kind. I want to protect my family. I want to do everything everybody else wants to do. How do I do that? So my hands are bloody too. And to mindful of that, like you said, every one of us are capable of atrocities, every single one of us, but we're also capable of angelic, almost godlike behavior to bless somebody, to hold somebody, to support somebody, to give life to somebody. We create life. That's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant question, because that's a hard one. The harder one I talked about is if within a religious setting where God is protecting you, you're convinced God is protecting you. It is the priest that violates your being. Now you're angry with the priest, you're angry with God. Where were you, God? It gets very complicated. And to be able to write those questions down and be okay with it. My personal deeper stories, I was so angry with my father, I wanted to kill him. I'm glad I didn't act on it, but I had to work on that piece myself. It's okay that I felt that. I'm so glad I didn't act on it, that at that moment it felt right, and it's okay. And I had to own that feeling. In fact, I had to own how angry I was that I felt that way. And if I went to my dad and said, I'm sorry, he's like, what are you apologizing for? But it worked over the years. It took me 10 years to adjust that. And I realized when I adjusted it, and I met him and I noticed he was shorter than me. You're shorter than me.
My name is
Fine.
Lorna.
Small man. Hey, Charles. Beautiful question. How do I stand? So when I was sitting here listening, right, I'm to some level doing some yoga to be as present as I can. That's what I'm saying. Bliss and happiness is not my goal. My goal is to be as present as I can to now. To the more I have done it, but I see somebody else do it. So I was at a place where I got an opportunity to meet a clan member, and he was very upset. And my question to him is like, you look so upset. Tell me what happened to you. What is your story? And everything shifted, totally shifted, that I am noticing humans as humans, not as them and others. One of the ways I had grown up with is to think about, as long there is an other, I have not arrived. So when somebody's totally violating within my means, if I can step in, I step in. I have said some strange things. I teach, when I do emotional intelligence, I use the word ouch a lot. When I see some kind of not cool, something happening at that way, I would actually say, ouch. And people will immediately respond, like, what are you talking about? There is hurt happening there. Somebody's hurt. Can we attend to it? But if there is an other, we are still struggling. It is easy as long as there is an other. It's hard to see the humanity. But before we see the humanity, we have to see our own humanity. Then it is easier to see the humanity. I've been called to have magic powers. I don't. I literally am as present as I can, as much as I can, and to tell people what I am going through. And they're like, oh, you? I'm like, yeah. And that is how it has helped me. Thanks, Charles. You're my man. I saw another question. It went away.
So there are a couple in here. Let me read them to you. One is, how can I continue to believe in the first principle of Unitarianism when I see actions which deny it? That, of course, is from Charles.
That one I just responded to.
All right. And then from Lenore, we have, please address forgiving people who would continue to harm you or act against you if you are around them. They have no intention to change the abusive behavior.
Beautiful. Then there is responsibility to self. You have to remove yourself. The moment you realize that person is doing this to you, you're unable to bring it to their attention. You must protect you. If you are not protected, how can you do any one of the work? So the awareness of even that there's an atrocity happening is the biggest piece. A lot of people in different political spectrum, they have no clue that this is the outcome of policies and this and that. They might even be aware, they might even want it. How do you work it? But if yourself is being harmed, the first thing to do is remove yourself from harm. And you are worth it. You are worth being alive. You belong to this world, like the trees and the stars and the bloom. If you are being hurt, remove yourself, find help, find other people to be connected to. And then the process begins. You cannot remain in a place when somebody slaps you, and you keep taking it. And then somewhere in there, I'm thinking, maybe you want to be slapped. There's some piece that hasn't happened. There's some self-preservation, self-respect hasn't happened. When there is self-respect, you can smell respect. People's choices of words will tell you they have no respect for you. I don't expect them to give it to me, but when I don't receive it, I oftentimes move away. I'm like, it's okay. You do you, I'll do me. And there's some level of self-preservation everybody needs. If somebody continues, you have to remove yourself. That's a fantastic question. It's not about being forgiveness and it stops everything. No, forgiveness allows you to rise in a place of strength, gratitude, and hope. You bless them and you walk away. I think in The Color Purple, Seeley does it, right? I'll let you go and you let them go. Thank you for that, because that's a good one. That's a very good one. Other questions? Tina, how am I on time?
I think we could take maybe one or two more questions.
Okay.
Hi.
Anyone?
Can I talk? I guess. I'm Larry. I was thinking about the act of forgiveness. My mother had a way of being critical and castrating, and I had problems with that. I was in the process of forgiveness, and one time I was sitting. I'm a retired psychotherapist in a meeting, and I had this great realization of gratitude toward my mother. If she hadn't been that way, I would not have gone into psychotherapy. I would have not gone into the field I'm in. And it's been work, but it's the satisfaction. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I have similar experiences. Like, I'm so glad that Dad was violent. I'm like, what? But that made me open my eyes to so many things. That who I have become, how gentle I have become, knowing that I have the capacity. And I've heard similar stories in many places where people have began forgiving or come to a place of like, one of the tricks that I did with my mother when you said mother was, she was 26 when I was born. I was the youngest of 6. And then when I meet 26-year-old, I look at them with loving kindness. I'm like, how could you have known anything? How could you even have raised me? Lo and behold, my sisters raised me, and I'm more connected to my sisters than. And then to be mad at my sisters, they were 7. I had to figure out how old were they when I was born. They were 6, 7, and 8. How could they have raised me? And to becoming aware of those pieces and to say, okay, she's doing the best she knew how. And I've come to gratitude. And then now my relationship with them is so full and rich. And it took my dad a good bit to actually accept the fact that I had forgiven him. He's like, you are angry at me. You want my money. And I said, I want none of it. I want none of it. I just want to see you. I want to hear your voice. I'll call him and say, he's like, here's mom. It's like, no, I want to hear your voice. And then he didn't know what to do. So I'll ask him, what are you working on nowadays? And then he goes on talking. Just hearing his voice calmed me down and helped me. And then it took him about 9 years to actually say, yeah, I think my son is not mad at me anymore. And it took him 9 years, but it didn't matter. I was doing me. And I was being in a place that I cannot be mad at him because I'll become him. That's the Star Wars story, right? The angrier, the more upset we are, we become that person. There's so much research to show that if you don't make peace or make forgiveness as a part of life, we become the person we're upset with. We see it in Israel and Palestine and Algeria and just people who have gone through trauma at home. Unless they make peace with it, they repeat it in their family. It's funny how it repeats itself unless we connect with it and reprocess it. Nice. That's a great story. I love that. And I could hear it in your voice, how glad you are. And it's like, thank you. I can feel it. Other questions? All right. So if there are no other questions, I'll wrap it up and then I guess we'll finish. So I started off with forgiveness. It's a complex topic because it's something that works behind our dreams, work with it. And because the way it works is the person who's the victim has to process forgiveness, not the person who did it. If you are the person who did it, it's easy to come to atonement and repent and fix it. But the person who has had it done to them, how could they? Why did they? How could they possibly? Where was humanity? That's where the hurt is. But we can begin processing it by writing it down, by telling the story, thinking about that paradigm that we're all doing the best we know how at all times, given the resources available to us at that time. And then when that process happens along the way, gratitude rises. Along with gratitude, hope rises. That's the crux of what I wanted to share today. So with that, I will thank you. Thank you so much. Tina, are you there?
I am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We really appreciate your time today. I got to tell you what especially resonated with me was the idea of writing it down. You know, I mean, you can carry so much grief and so much hurt, and at some point it starts affecting yourself.
That's
you
right.
know, so yeah, that really, really, really resonated with me. All right, so our next hymn is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Please join in singing if you feel so inclined.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is no caravan lover as leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. 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 rises look yet again come, despair, come, yet again come.
I just love that song. Now's the time in the service when we share joys and concerns. Thank you to those of you who have joined us on our YouTube channel. We hope